Hey, Doc John here, the Entre Professor. Really excited to be here to interview today Scott Ford, co-founder of what was Go Zigzag, now Spark Rockets, one of the leading platforms in AI for really helping businesses at early stage of ideation to come up with business concepts and to really build out business models, to work on customer development, and now even moving into some other areas that are really exciting.
The biggest challenge is, at these early stages, culture is so important, and working together is so important. You got to set aside time to work in the business, and you got to set aside time to work on the business. It's not necessarily fun work, but it's just something you have to do. It's a little bit of pride. And so we've done some of those things.
So it's great to catch up with Scott again. If you didn't have a chance, make sure you check the original interview almost a year ago now about the platform. Scott, thanks for being here. Really glad to make it again.
Absolutely. It's great, and great to do this in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Like in the real world. And we're here at the Global Consortium of Entrepreneurship Centers here at Babson College this week. And it's really great to be in the same room.
Yeah, fantastic. It's great being here, and it's great being around all these the colleagues and who are really passionate about entrepreneurship and helping early stage entrepreneurs.
Yeah, love it. So it's been a little while since we talked. Maybe for anyone who's watching this that hasn't seen the original interview or is not familiar with Spark Rockets, maybe just tell us a little bit about the company and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So Spark Rockets is an AI platform that, with as little as a single sentence describing your business concept, will help you build out an entire business validation roadmap in about 60 seconds. So it includes a lean canvas. So you get your business plan on a page. It gives you the steps to validate your idea. Does someone actually want it? How do you go about doing that? And the customer discovery, as well as some questions about that. And then finally, how do you tell your story? So mission, vision, value, elevator pitch, startup name, all of those things are all included in about 60 seconds. We create all of that off that one single idea.
That's amazing. And in my experience, it really is that fast. In 60 to 90 seconds, it's taking that even just very simple description and filling in a lot of those details. And I've had, as we've talked about, I've used it with my students, using it as a way for them to take an idea and start to get some, almost like a first draft.
Absolutely.
Start to figure out that business model. What are some other ways you've seen people use it?
Yeah, so that's the number one way. I also teach entrepreneurship at the University of Colorado Boulder, and we use it in my class as well. And that's really what we're trying to do is really help people get rid of that blank page. I don't know where to start. I have this idea. Maybe you're too embarrassed to share it or something, but it's in there. And so this is a way that people just launch and get their idea launched. And so we see it not only at the educational level with students, but entrepreneurs. We have a group of consultants who are using it to help write grants for their customers, corporate innovation teams that have all that IP sitting on the shelf. And oftentimes, if that IP doesn't have $1 billion market cap, they're not going to use it, but they're still valuable and they want to figure out how to monetize it. So we see it kind of across the spectrum, including some accelerators who are using it to review applications as they come in. Some are using it in program to help their startups.
Yeah. Well, and it's probably important for people to understand your background a little bit, because this is not just like we took ChatGPT and we got it to fill in a lean canvas, right? This is just get a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah. So how this came about was really about through my time at Techstars. So prior to doing this, I was the COO of Techstars. So I oversaw all of the accelerator programs, all the startup weekend programs. And what I found was that there was a gap in the time it took from a startup weekend, where you're just really iterating and ideating on ideas, to when you could get into the accelerator program. And so I wanted to shorten that time period. But fortunately, back in 2017, we had a couple of researchers from Harvard and MIT approach us, and they said, "Hey, we built this AI model to select companies for investment, and we wanted to test it out." And so we gave them several years of our application data. We found on par they could select companies as well as our managing directors. And I thought this was great, but in 2017, large language models weren't out there. This was a $1 million proposition to start, but I've since left Techstars. I built a prototype of this, and we figured out that, hey, we can do this with the large language models. And so that's really kind of the impetus of where we started with all of this, and now it's just grown since then.
Yeah. Well, from what I understand, it was a relatively small customer base when you and I first met a year or so ago, and now it's really grown. Maybe tell us a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the things that's kind of near and dear to my heart, is we're in about 104 countries last I checked. And so we're helping, what I say, democratize access to entrepreneur training and learning, across the globe. But we have 15,000 plus users on the platform, 30,000 plus ideas going through it. And so super excited that every month we're adding thousands of new users to the platform.
Yeah, that's excellent. So one of the things I really like about the platform is the emphasis it places on customer development. So many times that someone comes up with that first business model canvas, they fall in love with it, and then they just kind of charge forward. And it can be really tempting not to go and actually test those assumptions, do customer development. Talk a little bit about how the platform really helps to guide and fuel that process.
Yeah, so absolutely. So if you think of the platform kind of in three phases. So the first is kind of that business plan on a page where you're getting that idea and you're kind of defining what it is. But does anyone actually want that? There's so many times, I meet great founders who come to me with these great ideas, and I say, well, what problem are you solving? They have a technology in search of a problem. And so what we do on this is we give you the steps and we say, is it viable? Is it, desirable? Will anyone pay for it? And we give you kind of a ranked order of the steps of what to do. Go do a customer interview, go do an expert interview, spend the day in the life of a customer. We give you all of those steps along the way to help ensure you get out into the field and start talking to customers and make sure that they actually want the problem that you're trying to solve or want the solution to the problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I think is interesting is even the individual activities around customer development are kind of ranked in terms of like their priority and their importance, their impact. Talk a little bit about just how you even developed that ranking process.
Yeah. So that came about, just based on my experience and my team's experience, being at Techstars so many years, like I've kind of seen this process being an educator. I've seen this. And so along with my team, we've come up with kind of those things. It's, a bit of our secret sauce, if you will. I think we have 50 plus years of kind of early stage startup experience. And that's really what we've brought to the product to help those entrepreneurs know kind of the steps to take in kind of a prioritized order.
Yeah. Well, and I think that sounds to me like what really differentiates it from just a large language model, kind of looking at a few business models. This is years and years of training data. What are just some of the ways you really tried to kind of focus it, but also feed it with the kind of training data that makes it valuable? Yeah.
So for us, the starting place was, is it back in 2017, having this light bulb moment of, we could do something like this. And then it's really, surrounding myself with the teams that have this experience. And so I'm very fortunate. I have, a couple of the members from Techstars, working with me. Our CTO is someone that I've known since 2006. And so we've all come together and brought kind of our collective experience together to really, to make this, because we've all been founders before. We've all been successful. We've all been failed founders. And so we understand kind of what the challenges are with that. And so it's really about us bringing that knowledge to the platform.
Yeah. Well, and since you're bringing up the team, maybe just talk about that's such an important part of getting funded, is having people that really have experience and knowledge. And so it sounds like in some ways you've brought a dream team. Maybe talk about just the complementarian aspects of that, who you brought together, what roles, and what were some of the reasons why you chose who you chose.
Creating a startup is hard. It's rough. And you need people in your corner who have been there before, who supported you. And so that was the number one thing I wanted. I wanted people that I had a relationship with. Like, you're spending hours and hours and hours with everyone. So it was really important for me. And so, my expertise is, I'm not a technical founder. I'm the idea person. I'm the operations execution person. So I wanted to make sure I had the right people surrounding me. So my CTO, has been a long time founder, founded several companies. I've known him for a long time. We know we can work together. That was number one. Our CRO is someone I worked with at Techstars. And, as a founder, your number one job is being a salesperson. So I'm selling all the time, but it's great to have that resource whose primary job in his career has been kind of around that. And so being able to leverage him to take on the more complicated, the partnership deals and things that take a lot of time, so I can focus on, hunting down the next one. So having him as a support person. And then also, we brought on a marketing person who is very atypical of a marketing person. My marketing person has a PhD in computer science and a master's of fine arts and storytelling. So not only does she understand the technology, she understands how to tell the story about it. And so she's a very, what I'd say, atypical marketing person, because she comes with that deep technical background and knowledge and can really help us from a strategic perspective, really explain what we're trying to do.
Yeah. What are some of the key talking points in that, like explaining the technology and the differentiation that brings and bringing that story together?
Yeah, so for us, it's really about kind of the deeper strategy, and that goes from how we're going to our email campaigns that we're setting up, or how we're going to approach different organizations. So she's also very good on the sales side because of her background in kind of film and television and things like that. We're able to work with media companies in a very different way than I would, because she understands the language and the terminology and things like that. And so not only does she bring kind of that deep expertise from a marketing perspective, but she also brings that strategic, higher level understanding of how to get our message out in, call it non-traditional ways, in a way that, I just didn't have. That's just not my expertise at all. So having someone that I can just rely on 100% like that has been fantastic.
Yeah. Where have you found maybe the biggest challenges of kind of bringing a dream team together and getting the wheels turning?
The biggest challenge is, at these early stages, culture is so important, and working together is so important, and, establishing those working relationships. And so we're very fortunate that 3 of the 4 of us are all in Colorado, where we're based. And so every Thursday we work together. So we get together, we sit in the room. It doesn't matter if we're actually working on something together, we're just physically in the same room together. And it's just really helped us, kind of develop those relationships. We have the typical, Slack tools and text and all that stuff, but physically being in a room together, each week has really helped us kind of gel as a team. And we understand our strengths and weaknesses, can more easily rely on each other in many ways, because we know we're going to see them next Thursday. We're going to sit and we're going to brainstorm something, or we're going to have a hard conversation, or whatever it is. Makes it much easier as we're establishing that early culture on the team.
Yeah, that's great. I imagine as you're really looking at the operations of this, I mean, you've had a pretty big transition in terms of number of customers, going from, even a year ago, relatively few customers to now quite a big number. What's that been like, and what are some of the things you had to do to really bolster your infrastructure to be able to support?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest challenge with that is time, to be honest. We've been very, very fortunate that almost all of our customers have come inbound to us. We have not done very much in ways of outbound marketing. And so I get lots of people say, oh, I know someone I could introduce you. I know a college professor. I know an ecosystem. Like, it's just hard to absorb all of that, those incoming people. That's probably the biggest challenge. So we, over the summer, we brought in a summer intern and, helped us with some of the, kind of the basic blocking and tackling that we just couldn't get to. And I think the thing that, I always, talk to founders I coach with is you got to set aside time to work in the business, and you got to set a time to work on the business. And remembering to work on the business as opposed to in the business doing those sales, it's tough. And so, I've been fortunate. I've surrounded myself with some very strong mentors, and each week I have those phone calls, and that's my time to work on the business and help remind me, like, you don't have to do everything, but let's focus on what's important.
Yeah. What are some examples of things that you're doing that's in the business, and then compared to things that are on the business? Like, how do you distinguish which is which?
Yeah. So for us, this is something we've worked on over the last couple of months. Is, I talked about culture and setting that. And so what I want to do is make sure that we had gone through and we had kind of developed our own mission, vision, values, and things like that, and set, like, what our, our big, hairy, audacious goal is, and things like that. It's not necessarily fun work, but it's just something you have to do. It's a little bit of grind. And so we've done some of those things. So we've established, what our mission, vision, values are. We've talked a little bit about, our differentiators as a company. And we've written it down. And so we've now memorialized all of that. And whereas working in the business, it's you pick up the phone and doing another sale, or talking to someone about, partnership opportunity and things like that, which are still very important. But I know as we bring more people on, like, we need to have that established, like, these are what our values are. These are the core pillars of the business.
Yeah. So talk about those differentiators. I think a year ago I was looking at this as there wasn't anything even remotely like it. There are certainly some technologies now that at least describe some of the same kind of capabilities. What are you seeing as the landscape, and in particular, where do you feel like you really stand apart?
Yeah, I think it's really kind of a couple of different areas. in terms of differentiators, like we're building out a whole suite of things, and we're starting at the early stage at the ideation, and we'll build that out as the entrepreneur journey grows, and we'll build out new features and things along the way. Whereas a lot of other people in this space are building kind of point solutions. They're doing one thing. They're building a lean canvas, or they're building a pitch deck or something. We're building out a whole suite of things, and that's really what our relationship with our partners is making sure that we can deliver kind of along the whole entrepreneur continuum. And so that's probably the number one thing. The other is we've got a ton of data that we're collecting all kinds of rich data points with every single idea that's entered. And now those are your ideas. We don't own those ideas or anything like that. But we're able to take that data in an anonymized fashion and do trending reports. And because we work with lots of universities, we're very fortunate that lots of universities raise their hand and say, hey, we've got a team of interns for this class or something. We'd like to work on some real life projects. And so we've been able to work with different universities for that. We're working on one with that with an AI team, looking at how to build in the ability to take the original idea someone's entered and map it to kind of a funding database, whether that be a angel investor, a VC, grant money, things like that. So as our entrepreneurs are moving along that continuum, when they get to a certain point, we'll be able to hand them and say, hey, here's a list of potential funding sources you can start with.
So it'd almost be like a matching app for
Absolutely.
those that are looking to fund in a certain space, and then those that would match up with their priorities.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. So how are potential investors funding, private equity, VC, angels, how are they responding to it so far?
So, it's kind of interesting. There's probably two sides to this question, so I'll answer the first one is, when we originally built this, we built it with an investor mindset. And we were thinking that, VCs would love a tool like this and things because, my background from Techstars was really from the investor perspective, but it was very different. Your traditional venture capitalist is only making a handful of investments a year, 10, 12, something like that. They can already have the systems, process, and people in place. And so that was number one thing is our first pivot was that was not the market for us. We really focus on kind of a one-to-many. So it's one university, lots of students. It's one ecosystem, lots of entrepreneurs. It's one accelerator, lots of startups in there. And so that's kind of been the big shift for us in terms of how we're positioning and marketing the product going out there. The feedback's been very positive, but from a customer perspective, they're just not really our customer. Yeah. But I won't turn you down, but I'm not. It's not an area of focus because they tend to have their own systems and processes in place.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. I like what you're talking about in terms of the one-to-many. It's almost like channels. So it sounds like you have different, like if a university becomes almost a channel to reach lots of student entrepreneurs, or maybe a community entrepreneurship center becomes a way to reach many. How are you seeing, those organizations respond to this, and what seems to be the way to really connect with the work they're doing?
Yeah. So they've been great. And again, we've been very fortunate that we're in 175 different universities at this point, and they've all come through kind of conversations like this. It's referrals, and so I talked to one professor who tells another and tells another, and they're coming to us that way. And so they've been absolutely great to work with. The ecosystems are also an interesting thing. I mean, we're working with some ecosystems as small as a city and as large as a state, and we're working on perhaps a country, outside of the U.S. And so it's been great because everyone is seeing like entrepreneurship, is really an economic driver for what they're trying to do. And so whether you're a university and you're trying to create more student entrepreneurs, or you're an ecosystem and you're trying to bring more jobs locally to the city, like those are the important drivers for them. And so that economic driven aspect of it has really been, a big driver for us.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So going back to a little bit to the aggregating all this information, you have investors that are maybe going to have an interest in it, or you have, founders that are putting a lot of their data in. What are what do you say to a founder who's like, wait, what, my idea is going to be out there now, and like, how do you? I know that's a lot. I mean, that's the big discussion around a lot of AI. This information is aggregated. How are you?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that information is very clear on our terms of service and our privacy policy. Like, this is your idea. This is your IP. This is not something that we're going to take. I'm not in the business to go to create your idea. I'm there to support that. But I will use that data in an aggregated, anonymized way, so I can understand better how I can improve our product line.
Yeah.
In things like that. But yeah, absolutely, it's definitely one of the number one questions I get, and that's why it's very clearly spelled out in our policies.
Yeah. So big change right now. I'd known the product, and if you watch for the previous interview that I did with Scott, it was Go Zigzag. And now in the process of rebranding. So talk about Spark Rockets. What maybe initiated that decision, and what's really the story that kind of links you to the new brand?
Yeah. So for us, the branding was really driven by confusion in the marketplace, if you will, and not in a great way, but Zigzag has a reputation for, there's other products called that. And so we wanted to just move away. While I still believe in, the path of entrepreneurship definitely zigzags, we wanted to come up with something, more unique to us. And so, Spark Rockets is, we're going to help you light that spark of an idea and hopefully rocket you off. And so that was really the driver. And before you ask, yes, I put our business into the platform, and it came up with ideas. It didn't come up with Spark Rockets, but I absolutely did use that for the startup naming. That's how I started the whole process. And so that's what we've done. The other thing is we'll have a new release here towards the end of the year, beginning of next year, where we've updated the UI completely, and it'll be much more modular. And so that will allow us future expansion of how we want to partner with organizations and have them come in and be part of our platform, or as we build out things. And so some of the new features that will also be included in that is, our number one request is market size. So what's my total addressable market? And so what's unique about that is we bring that information back in you, and we summarize all of that, but we also give you all the data points, and we give you the source material where we captured that information from. So you can go and investigate it as well. We'll also do a regulatory assessment. So if you're in an area that has regulation, we'll do an assessment of that area. We'll give you a list of industry trends that are happening around your idea. And then the last thing is the ability to do what I'll call a founding team gap analysis, where you'll actually be able to upload the founding team's resumes and CVs into the system. And we'll do a gap analysis and kind of give you a stoplight report, red, yellow, green. Do you and I have complementary skills, or are you missing a skill, or things like that? And then we kind of give you a ranking and a grade of that. And so it's not something to eliminate a founder, but it's really something to just open the conversation and say, hey, I noticed you don't have a certain skill. We have a gap. We need to bring someone on, or maybe it wasn't listed on your resume, and so it just doesn't come up.
Yeah.
But a way to evaluate your teammates.
Yeah. There's a number of different theories about what composes an effective startup team. Y Combinator has their hacker, hustler, designer. I think NFX has the numbers person, the words person, the visionary. What are some of the things when you've trained that model? What are some of the things you've looked at?
So we haven't trained that model in a specific framework like that. What I would like to do in the future is use a traditional framework. A Myers-Briggs, a DISC, Strength Finders, something like that. Yeah. Mostly because we want to use language that other people are already using, as opposed to coming up with our own, our own algorithm based on our own crazy idea or something like that. There's so many other proven methodologies out there that will evolve to something. We don't know what that is yet, but we'll evolve to something that's a little bit more, well known in common. But right now, it's really just the gap analysis, where we're analyzing the information on your resume and evaluating that, and then identifying the gaps based on the original idea that's entered into the platform.
So it sounds like you're looking almost like at experience and kind of resume, like training experience, formal background, and then, but also it sounds like you're also thinking in terms of personality profiles and matchups and that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we're not looking at where you went to school or what your GPA is, graduated, or anything like that. We're looking, it's very experiential. We want to see what experiences you have and what you bring to the team, and the personality. Will you get along with the other team members?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, and I should maybe circle back to what you said about market sizing, total available market. It's the one thing that I find founders struggle a lot to know what is the right way to found it. Oftentimes I remind everyone it's a calculation, it's a research effort, it's not a Google search. What are some of the things that you're doing to really give that the foundation? I mean, like the sourcing I know is really significant. How are you seeing that playing out for the?
Yeah, so our job is not to give you all the answers. Our job is to give you the data. And so, for example, I'm never going to tell you your idea is good. I'm also never going to tell you your idea is bad, but I'm going to give you the data and I'm going to let you make the decision on that. And so when we're providing that information, I'll tell you that, this source says the market is $20 billion and this source says it's $22 billion and this source says it's going to be $32 billion in 15 years. And it's up to you as the entrepreneur to take accountability and ownership. Like what I talk about a lot is AI is a fantastic tool. It's tremendous, but you can't use it in a vacuum. Exactly. And so it's human AI collaboration. So I think of it as the human has to prompt the AI, the human has to evaluate the AI. AI is only as smart as what it was trained on. And so we're giving you the data and giving you the ability to source it and say, this really isn't a valid source for what I'm doing for whatever reason. And it forces the entrepreneur to use their critical thinking skills. I think that's one of the things we talk about at the university quite a bit, especially when we use it in classes. How are we still getting students to use their critical thinking skills instead of just cutting and pasting what the output is? And so it's the same concept. We want all founders to use those critical thinking skills. And so I'm not handing you everything. I'm handing you 90% of it maybe, but I'm not handing you 100%. I need you to use that last 10% to really evaluate your idea and, do that deep introspective look at it and say, yeah, this makes sense or it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, it's like so many of them, even when well-trained, it can be a good first draft. It can be a good, way to compile and draw in a lot of the details. At the same time, it's that the human has to, really organize that information and, as you say, evaluate and analyze it and determine whether it's as relevant as it seemed to the algorithm, and then make sense of it.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, tell me about storytelling and all of that. Like, you've mentioned your CMO has that background, and I really feel like storytelling becomes such a critical part of, not just data. It's not just an idea. It's bringing the story together that puts those together. How are you seeing that play into the?
Yeah. So with us, storytelling is really giving you kind of foundation things like based on your idea, what could be the mission of your company? What are the values? Like, I don't necessarily know what your values are, but I'm going to give you 4 or 5 values that seem to align with the idea. It's up to you to choose whether you want those values or not, but at least you have a framework which to work in. And, similarly, when we create the elevator pitch, I was hesitant to create an elevator pitch that flows perfectly in a paragraph. It's more of a bullet point list. And so we make sure that we cover kind of the traditional things that you may see in an elevator pitch in terms of, market sizing and problem you're solving and things like that. And so we're giving you kind of the framework again to use that. But again, we're not giving you 100% finished, polished answer because we want you to put your own take on it and your own, your own version of that. Yeah. But we're making sure that we're hitting the critical pieces of, what does someone want to hear in an elevator pitch? They want to hear what the problem is, what the solution is, what the market size is, who the customers are. So all those components are in there.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and see just even your target customer is expanding, more categories, more potential applications. How are you kind of working through the right now, keeping things focused and keeping things moving forward, but at the same time realizing there's more and more opportunity coming in?
Yeah, absolutely. What we're trying to do is, focus on, the number one things that we're hearing from our users. Fortunately, the top 5 things are all the same kind of across things. Yeah. What we'll start to, kind of differentiate or step away from that is there's some of our user base, especially the larger institutions, need reporting, need admin features and things like that, whereas a traditional entrepreneur doesn't need to see who else has used the platform or things like that. So we'll start to diverge a little bit on some of the things. But right now our focus is really, building with the entrepreneur in mind first. That's who we're really focusing on, is who that entrepreneur is. And so that will continue to be our focus. And then, as part of that, we're focused on entrepreneurs at the university. We need this level of reporting. We're focusing on entrepreneurs in the corporate innovation team, we need this kind of reporting or things like that. And so we'll be able to slot those things in, but what we really want to do is just keep the entrepreneur first in our minds.
Yeah. So who right now that might be watching this might be thinking, maybe I need this. Like, what would be the kind of that persona for using our terminology? What would be that persona of somebody that really should talk to you right now?
Yeah. So I think we're at the ideation stage. So it's any entrepreneur, any student, any user at that early stage who says, I don't know how to articulate my idea. I've got this idea, but I don't know where to start. Is the number one thing to do. I say that because that's kind of where the core of our customers have been. But I also have users come back to us and say, Scott, I've been in business for 2-3 years, and this was a great refresher. Like there were things I'd forgotten about, like I originally planned to do, and I completely forgotten because I was working in the business, not on the business. And so it becomes your own kind of personal consultant, if you will. And so we have users use this all the time in existing businesses that's been around, but predominantly our focus has been on those early stage when we're just getting started.
Okay, that's great. So someone wants to get a hold of you. What are some of the best ways to reach out to you, or just to learn more about Spark Rockets, to get into the loop? Yeah,
I mean the best thing is I said just give it a try. We have a freemium model where everyone can try it for free, and so it's sparkrockets.com. You go there. We make it super easy to sign up and be online, and it only takes 60 seconds. So between the sign up and the 60 seconds, you're maybe 90 seconds, maybe 120 seconds into it. Is probably the number one thing people can do to give it a try.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I know we did this before, so I'll have to see if you can think of another one. I always like to ask about favorite founder films. Have you seen any new founder films, or have any favorites, new favorites?
I'd forgotten about this question, and now I curse it because I should have remembered this. Any founder films. I've been building and working. I don't have time for films like this. Even on this flight here to Boston, this is like my time to watch movies and stuff.
Yeah,
I have grading to do, and so I graded the whole time here. So I'll have to think about that and tell you before the end of the weekend here what it is. But yeah, I can't think of a good founder film off the top of my head. You get me.
All right. Well, so maybe I'll share one that I'm kind of interested in right now. I've only just seen the first episode, but it's called The Playlist, and it's the founder story of Spotify.
Oh yeah.
And so it's subtitled. It's a Swedish film. It's following the founder, and so I haven't had a chance to get into it very deeply, but probably can depend on a founder film breakdown coming soon on that one. So there's maybe when you do kind of have the big release and you're ready to watch something, maybe that will be one to check out.
I've actually seen that. I've seen the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Well, you can tell me. So give me your breakdown.
It came out a couple of years ago. I remember watching it. Yeah. There's I have kind of a personal connection to that. During my time at Techstars, we held an event in Torino, Italy. It was a Startup Week event, and Daniel Ek, the founder of Spotify, came and was one of the speakers. And I was fortunate enough to bring my son, who was, I think he was 15 or 16 at the time. And, to this day, he's like, Dad, you can never let the Spotify subscription run out. He loves it. And so I was able to take him backstage and introduce him to Daniel Ek. And I remember there was some delay in this. And this was going to be a 2-minute kind of meet and greet. We spent like 15 minutes with Daniel. He was the nicest guy ever. And I remember he and my son were getting into it, and he was asking about, the kind of musical taste my son had. And he was saying, he had just been at some party in Los Angeles with, some musician and things like that. And he and my son just hit it off, and he could not have been the nicer guy. And he's not as portrayed as friendly as that in the film. But in real life, he is a wonderful guy.
Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing. Well, and a great story of disruption, even where everyone thought all the disruption was over, and there was a whole other angle and a different battle to fight in his way of like kind of changing even yet again how the world saw music, consumed music, interacted with music, and how that still benefited those that were producing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So great example. I'm glad I brought that up.
Absolutely.
Like first inside scoop. So that's great.
Yeah. He was a great guy.
Well, Scott, thanks for
absolutely
here again. And this is great to see your story unfolding. And I'm looking forward to maybe we'll do this again in 6 months or a year.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And coming soon, like the big launch and
So the rebranding, the new user interface, all the new features and things like that. If it weren't for the holidays, we get it out a little bit sooner, and so we're pushing to get it out for the end of the year. But it could be slip into January. But yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I will put all of the links and Scott's information in the description below. So if you want to reach out to him, definitely throw us a like if you like this interview. And if you have questions for Scott, throw them in the comments. I'll see if I can kind of get back with those. But thanks for joining for this one. And Scott, thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's great seeing you.
Awesome. Keep going.
All right.